Hey bonjour and dinaway maganitok wap canoe indigo. How's it going, guys? Wap canoe here again. So by now many of you have created your own business cards, and that's useful so that you can give them to people like me, and then I can put them into a big stack like this and leave them on my desk. No, kidding. But I thought that business cards would be a good way to introduce today's subject, which is the different types of entrepreneurs that are out there. So if you take a look at all these cards that I have here, you can see that there's all sorts of different exciting logos and enterprises and agencies that people are engaged in. And each of them is a different sort of business and indeed a different sort of entrepreneur. So basically, I just want to talk about a few of those examples, and we'll consider what makes those businesses different from each other, and more importantly, what do they all have in common. So first up, I've got one from my good friend at Vale. So Vale is a mining company. The product basically is minerals. A lot of times it's things like nickel. If you're here in Manitoba, that's an important one. The client or the customer of theirs is the global commodity market, but essentially it's people who are going to take that nickel and turn it into either coins or other sorts of metallic objects. And of course, the overall market that they're competing in is the global commodity market for minerals. Okay, on to the next card. This one is for a doctor. So now what they do is they provide a service, healthcare, medical treatment for you. Then they bill the government. So even though you are the client, they don't necessarily pass the cost on to you personally. They record what they have done for you, and then they pass that on to the government. So there is still a billing relationship there. It's just that it's often hidden from the end user. So they still have a product or service, which is medical treatment. They still have a customer, which is the client, and then the government who pays the bills. And then the market is, of course, the entire market for healthcare here in Canada and indeed in the globe. The next one, this is for a consultant. Now a consultant is similar to a lawyer or a doctor, but they can be a little bit more broad in the services they offer. So this one particularly is for an event planner. So this group, what they do is they work with different companies who want to put on conferences or special events. They book the locations, they book the public speakers, they book the entertainment, they book the caterers, they book the designers, everything that it takes to make that event a success. They take care of that. Now, in this case, they still have a product, a good, or a service, namely event planning. They have the customer, the people who want to put on a conference or some sort of event, and they have the market that they compete in, which is, of course, the overall event planning industry. And they have direct competitors, meaning other people who are planning events, and then they have other maybe indirect competition. So if you have $100 a month to spend on entertainment, you probably will choose between going to, say, a Justin Bieber concert. I know none of you guys are going to go to Justin Bieber concerts, but between a Justin Bieber concert and then maybe an event that these guys plan. So they are, generally speaking, competitive with everybody who's planning events in the city, even if it's not just conferences and the like. And the last card that I have here, Sherry's Biz. Well, this woman, she sells soaps and natural spa treatment products that are created from herbs that I guess she's learned about through the Aboriginal culture. Now, this is a more traditional sort of business, right? She has her products, which are like the soaps and the lotions and the creams and all that. She has her customers, who are the people who come and buy off her at her, her store, or when she goes to a conference, they buy stuff from her booth there in the conference. And then she has the marketplace, right? She's competing in this market against all the other people who are selling similar products, like Aboriginal-inspired healthcare and beauty products, but also generally against Lever 2000 and Axe and Dove and all those brands that you see at Shoppers or Safeway or Walmart or what have you. So there you go. A few quick examples of the different types of entrepreneurs that are out there. Now they all look very different, right? The mining company is this huge billion-dollar corporation with head offices all over the world, right? The woman who owns the beauty supply company based on the Aboriginal culture, well, that's a very small operation. She's probably the only employee of it, and she only has one location and supplements the income that she gets from that by going to conferences and stuff like that. Then in between, you have the doctor's office, which may have a few employees, but may have a few different places where they do business. And then, of course, the event planner is almost like a virtual type of business, because typically she doesn't really need a place to work, though she does keep an office. In theory, you could do that business from home or from your car or anywhere that you could have access to cell phone or the internet. So what are the key things that every business has? Well, one, they have a product, a good, or a service that they offer to the world. So they have a product or good or service, right? What else do they all have? Well, they all have somebody who wants those things, somebody who is demanding their product or good or service, meaning a customer or a client, right? And this customer or client is not only demanding those things, but is willing to pay for them. What's the last thing that unites them all? Well, they're all competing in a market, meaning that they're not the only person providing a product or good or service. There are many other companies doing the same thing. Now, there is, of course, one more thing that they all have in common, and this one's very fundamental, and it's one that we're going to get into even more next week. For these businesses to last, for them to be around the block year after year, there is one key trait that they all must do. They must earn more money than they spend. So they all have revenues, they all have expenditures. So revenues is the money that they take in, expenditures is what they have to spend to keep themselves alive. So if they were losing money year after year, they would go out of business and the people running them would go bankrupt. So if you see these companies existing year after year or even growing, you can be sure that they are making more money than they spend. And that's one of the key traits of a successful business, is that it takes in more money than it spends.